How you doing? Right, Sam Clarke-Smith. I'm doing my presentation on Unit 12, Assessment 1. We're going to start the presentation off with talking about the effects of crime. And in general, effects of crime can be, absolutely catastrophic, to be honest. Example I've got is antisocial behaviour. If you have it around your local area, if you feel safe around the local area, and then you suddenly come in front of a group of youths who, you may not have, antisocial behaviour orders, but if that does happen, it can affect you, and it can affect your community. And the effects, obviously there's more crimes. You got robbery, and you got a whole list of the murder, and it affects the individuals, the victims, and the actual community. So a crime has a huge impact on every people's daily ins and outs, and the community as a whole. Because if you think, for example, around Wolverhampton, you think of Whit Marine, you think, oh, don't want to be around there late at night, because it has a reputation for crime, and it can destroy a whole area. It can destroy a whole city. If like London, I think it's the south parts of London. You just don't go down there because it's dangerous. So, and because it's related to crime, and that's pretty much the whole effects of crime. It affects from the little things to the big things, and it can cause big problems. Next slide is obviously the fear of crime. Different people react to their fear of crime. It comes down to every person's different when stuff happens to them, especially when it comes down to fear. Some people, if they're obviously, like I said when I mentioned the first slide about the effects of crime, fear of crime can be even worse, because it's one of the effects of crime. And like I said in that, if antisocial behaviour, and you got a group of youths who come up to you and say, give me money, or whatever happens, attempted robbery, it can make you fearful of going out at night. So you sort of, after that, you're fearful of it happening again. So you become paranoid of it happening again to you and repeating it, and so you become very fearful of the actual crime happening and coming back to you. Even comes down to the fact as well, some people who, for a crime that happens in the daytime, they could be afraid of facing day-to-day things like going to a shop in the daytime. They might think, something could happen, or, for example, if you're extreme, but kidnapping, if that happens in the daytime and it's on a random street, you're afraid of going down that area, or down that part of town, or wherever you were at a certain time. Another big one, which happens, is obviously burglary. And if someone comes into your home, your own home, where you feel safe, where you come home every single day, and then suddenly someone breaks in and takes everything, you become very paranoid about it happening again. And so every little noise you hear is, it's freaking you out, and it would do to anyone, because it's the home where you sleep at night. It's where you want to feel safe. The most common place for you. You come home every day, you want to feel safe at your home, and then suddenly someone comes and burgles. It makes a huge impact, and so you become fearful of even feeling safe in your own home, which is just ridiculous, because obviously your home's meant to be a place where you're meant to feel safe. And like I said before, it's just one of those things. And the next slide is public perpetration of crime. I couldn't say the word. Obviously this is quite a big thing. I believe the media has a huge impact on everyone's opinion of crime. The big thing is where you hear about crime and everything happens is you hear it word of mouth sometimes, but most of the time It's either, you know, you're watching the news, or Facebook's quite a big one, social media, where you hear a lot of that. Hear of like, oh yeah, there's been a stabbing in Whitton Marines, or they found a dead body over in Wednesbury or whatever the other day. And it's one of those things, and I believe quite a lot of it, like we mentioned before, what we did in class is how we went on to different news outlets on the internet and what they had on their front page. Obviously the BBC and the news had something about when the immigrants were coming over, and that poor kid who died. I can't remember what country it was now, but you know, that poor child who died on the sea coming over from another country, and stuff like that. But then other newspapers, like I think I looked up, which I was quite amazed, the Independent, who didn't have that on the front page. On the front page I believe they had some ex-military soldier who was trying to walk again, and then the actual immigrant crisis was like halfway down the page, not even that. You know, it's right down the bottom compared to any other news outlet, which, you know, it shows. Obviously Independent is seen as the most what businessmen look at, stuff like that, and then obviously most day-to-day people who want to watch, like quite a lot of my family watch the BBC and stuff, and people who have Sky, obviously it's one of the programmes on there, so they put it in there because everyone's talking about it, and they're talking about it because it's the thing that's happening at the moment. And if you look at the news today and the newspapers, you don't even hear about this immigrant problem anymore. You know, it's like it's gone, simple as that. You know, everyone's opinion's moved on to something else that's happening. You know, it's stuff like that. And I believe as well the media always focuses on the bad things, and it can sort of make everyone feel very much worse about what's happening. And sometimes media can make different perspectives of what's happening at that certain time. You know, stuff like that. It's just ridiculous. And as well, what happens with the public services in the media is that we always get a bad name. You know, with the police, they do a better job than most people, you know, what they expect or what they hear about, because, you know, we're human beings. We're meant to make mistakes, and the UPS do a lot of better things out there that the media doesn't pick up, because they like to pick up on the bad things, which they have done in the past, and it's caused bigger effects, and it could cause, you know, bigger effects. Next slide is the impact of crime on victims, and obviously this is quite a big one, bearing in mind that crime can have a huge impact on victims on their day-to-day life, on activities like I mentioned in previous in the video. I mean, bearing in mind there is a lot of conditions that can come from this. I mean, a big one is depression, and well, depression mainly because obviously you know, you're getting down about things that you could have done, and you're overthinking things you could have done in that situation, or how you could have prevented that situation, and it goes from there. And obviously a lot of stuff, it can cause stress, anxiety, paranoia, mental breakdown, and there's a lot more that relate back to the impacts of crime, and that's just on the individuals. And on the individuals, it can obviously, if they get any of them conditions or disorders that they have been diagnosed with, or they feel like they have, and they feel like their day-to-day activities have been affected by this crime that they've experienced in their lives, can dramatically change their lives, and for the better or the worst. I mean, the impact on the victims, sometimes they may even turn to crime, to the crime that they were the victim to, because they just feel a bit of sense of revenge. Probably they probably want to get their back. You know, they probably feel like they need to do something to make it better, which is not the way, obviously, because breaking the law is just not the way to go about things. But they do the opposite and fight against it. But some people just feel they need to, and so they do, because of what's happened or may not happened. And as well, what can happen to communities in this sort of problem, how it affects the victims. I mean, it's like, obviously, someone in that community gets burgled, and then the whole community's on alert because it's happened. I mean, around my area, we had a few break-ins because I noticed most of the people who got broken into were ones with motorbikes, and they were going around checking out each garage they thought had motorbikes to try and nick them. And so I know I did. I went to a friend and said, you need to sort out your garage because there's someone going around trying to take bikes. And that's it puts the whole community on alert, and it can not as well affect the individual who's been burgled or attempted burgled, can put everyone else at stress and freak them out, make them a bit paranoid. I know a couple of people obviously wanted to try and take it into their own hands, but obviously didn't work. But it can affect people in different ways. I mean, some people, like I said, they try and take it into their own hands and try and hunt down the people, or try and make it, so they can try and catch them because they feel the police aren't doing their job, which some people think they don't. And to be fair, there's not a lot they can do. I mean, if you call them up and you give them a statement, there's not a lot of evidence to follow up on, or the problem is sometimes it happens so much it's uncontrollable, which is another problem. The impact of crime on lifestyle, like I mentioned previously in the video, obviously, like I said about getting attempted robbery on the street at night, it could affect your lifestyle of going out at night to the shop, or if you're going uptown and you're spiked in your drink, or for girls you get raped, even men probably actually, it can affect their day-to-day lives. It's like you don't feel like you can trust people around you. I mean, even though the people you went up with probably you trusted, it wasn't their fault, it's still the fact that you can't trust anything that's going to happen up there, and so you become paranoid about that all happening. So that affects if you're a person who wants to go uptown every now and then and have a good night, you won't be able to have a good night because you're worried about what if that happened again, and it could affect it from there. And it's the same with, like I said earlier in the video about the burglary in your own house. That could affect your lifestyle. It could put so much stress on you if you go to work thinking constantly about your house or how you're going to come home, and you can't go to sleep because you're so tired. The next day you can't do work as properly as you could before, and obviously that could affect your lifestyle because it could end up you losing your job because you're too tired and not doing what the job requires you to do. And so it can go on from there. And that's the problem. And as well as this, it can affect the community because it can affect the sort of, so if, like in the community you had a sort of connection with your neighbours, and because of, like say, a burglary, it can knock you out of sync and you might not feel trustworthy to other people, and that could affect your lifestyle within your local area. I mean, like communities, you might not want to get on with your neighbours because you might think, I don't really want to do this, and it can affect not just you, but it can affect the whole area, because like I said earlier, crime affects not just the victim, but it affects everyone around it, and it can make a huge impact. Basically just a breakdown on crime. I found on the internet of a diagram. You see that on the PowerPoint that I'm using, about how many times the crime is committed and what's the most common. And it's from, I think it's from 2014 May 2013 to April 2014. The one I found that was most common was antisocial behaviour, which is quite obviously a big problem. And then I think the second one was violent crime, and that was in the UK, which is, not a big problem. I mean, another thing I thought was quite a big problem in the UK was drugs, but that only comes up at 180,000, 190,000 if you want to round it up. But the antisocial behaviour was about 2 million people, or cases of it. and then violent crime was 700,000. So obviously antisocial behaviour is up there, definitely in the top dog, or percentages of what's happening in that stuff. The most least is probably robbery. Bearing in mind, you probably can't get away with it. I know, yeah, these days, because it's quite a petty crime that quite a lot of people resort to. Vehicle crimes at 370,000. Shoplifting still 300,000 pretty much. What else do we have? Another one that's actually sorry, it was lower than robbery, was possession of weapons, which is only 20,000, which is still quite a lot, but obviously it's not bad, bearing in mind the amount of guns and knives we hear about in the news. They make it out to be a big thing, which it really isn't in this country. It's just the news makes it out. Obviously, coming on to the cost of crime, which can be quite a lot, especially drugs and stuff. But there's three types of crime that the cost of it: anticipation of crime, consequences of crime, and response to crime. Anticipation of crime involves like CCTV, the cost of running thousands and thousands, possibly millions of CCTV operations is, you know, if you just think of every business, they at least have one camera on their premises. I mean, where I work, there's cameras everywhere. The whole office, when I go in, there's two screens, one or two screens full of cameras, and it's ridiculous, because I mean the cost of running that, just to have them running, must be a lot. 24/7, every days of the year, you know, it must, and that's just one business, you know. I mean, it must cost loads of electricity just trying to catch something in case something does happen. As well, I guess you can think about security, like security guards. They're there to, in case crime does happen. So if you think about shoplifting, they have security guards and security barriers there in case something does happen of crime, so they can catch it. So you've got to pay for someone's wage to be there, and even if it's not their own employees, it could be a business, so you have to pay for the businesses, and then the business has to pay for the people. You know, the price, the amount of money that goes into waiting for crime, anticipation of crime, must be absolutely millions of it, because it just goes overboard sometimes. But that's the world we live in. Consequences of crime is obviously a bit more meaningful, because the cost of losing valuables. You know, I mean, if you lose something very close to you that you had from your childhood, and then someone just comes and takes it from you in a burglary or something like that, it can hit you hard, because you saw that as yours, and someone just comes and takes it. Or something that, say, you worked hard for, and then someone comes and takes it away from you because they wanted it, and so they did, and it makes you think, you wonder why, you know, because you worked so hard for it and stuff like that. But another one is obviously losing pay at work, because if something did happen at home and you need days off, obviously, because certainly you might become stressed about it, you know, get a bit depressed or whatever you may feel, and you need time off work. Your workplace might not understand about how you feel, so they might decide to, you know, obviously you'll be on sick pay, so it's literally half your pay, or even depends where you work, but it can affect your work life, it can affect your home life, and that's the cost of crime does to it all. Response to crime as well is probably the same about anticipation crime, because you've got a big example is police. I mean, if you think, obviously, you're sitting at home and you see something happening across the road, you call the police. The police got to come. I mean, bearing in mind the police might not be doing anything because they might be doing patrols, so not necessarily mean they're at the station waiting for the call. They might actually already be on the beat, and most police will be on the beat at that time. So they'll call that police officer. They're two people, possibly in the car, maybe three, paying for their wages. I think it's £10, £13 an hour. they're going around making sure everything's alright, and then they get a call. So someone has to pay for the fuel for them to go around doing that. And then obviously they're there, and then obviously you've got to make sure that the police cars are suitable for the road and suitable for, you know, doing police chases or being equipped to carry more passengers if necessary, stuff like that. And then obviously it's the cost of putting them through the cells, and I think even in prisons, having one prisoner costs the government £20,000, I believe, and it's just amazing how much it costs, you know. And then obviously putting the people through prosecution, you know, probably keeping them in the cells must cost. It's just unbelievable how much it would cost just for that one person to be arrested, and you know, it costs more time when then police officers could be out causing, dealing with more crime and stuff. And it's the cost of crime it's not just down to money, it's down to the cost of keeping the people on, and it's not just down to the equipment and all of that. It's about the cost of the whole process, which people miss out. And you say, oh yeah, the drugs in the police, you know, it's all 1 million a year, but then you've got to think about the hours put into other places. So the whole amount going into just the police force is absolutely not. And the same with the paramedics. I mean, just think about all the wasted products they have to waste every year because of protocols and health and safety, and where they, even if they open a packet and don't use it, they can't reseal it because it's not sterilised, and even if no one touches it, you can't use it, and that's another wasted product on the NHS they've brought for another 500 quid for a needle or bandage, or you know, it's what you pay. Yeah, but that was my presentation on Unit 12 Assessment 1. Thank you.